That'll do. So, one more minute. To start over. I don't know if they're going to show up or not. So if we could just begin with the working media, if you could just identify yourself and where you're from. Anyone would like to start?
Tom Scott, KBIA.
Vanessa Villavinia, KBA.
Alex O'Donnell, KFox News.
Lindsay Anderson, Sun News.
Anybody else? Okay, and the only speaker today is our superintendent, Stan Rounds. It's STAN ROUNDS. He's the superintendent of Las Cruces Public Schools. He'll make a statement and then be available for a few minutes for questions and answers.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon. I recognize in the room with me a bunch of very dedicated, hard-working school folks. And congratulations to you. Because before I start today, I want to make some announcements about our successes. Did you know that last year we graduated a higher percentage of kids in Las Cruces Public Schools than we have since I've been here? I'm just about to wheel up in the 7th year. Did you know that almost 3/4 of our kids graduated on time? Did you know that we gave more scholarships, that's assistance to students going to college and higher education, than we have in over 20 years? Did you know that we have a dedicated staff who works with us and for our children? Did you know that our community gave more money, more support, and more volunteer hours than it has during the entire time I've been superintendent of school? Now, it's not a decade here, but I have been a superintendent since 1983. So that's about 30 years in the wheelhouse. And this afternoon, I want to reflect on some things that are happening and on a rally that's happening outside in a few minutes, and just draw a little focus on where we are and maybe where we might contemplate going. Because you see, these are important times. I talked to my cabinet the other day, and I said, you know, I feel like we're in a tsunami. It's kind of a tsunami of change. When I came to work as a superintendent in 1983, they had just published a book called A Nation at Risk. And it said in that statement that the national education system in America was failing. And we were creating a risk in America where we would no longer be a world power. It's because we had to pay attention to education. And in part, they were right. Our kids are horribly important, aren't they? In fact, many of you sitting here today in leadership positions came out of that system of the last 30 years. Congratulations. You are good at your craft. You do good work, and so are the teachers that work with us and the folks who help us educate our children. And I don't want us ever to lose sight of that. But I also don't want us ever to lose sight of the very important challenge we have to assure we have quality education happening in the Las Cruces Public Schools every day, in every class, for every child. Because it's not okay not to meet that marker. And that's really what this debate's all about. You see, we are in a national debate. We have been for over 30 years, and we continue to be there because times are tough in America. Times are tough in our economy. We have more challenges than ever before. We have more broken families than ever before. We have more social development issues in America than ever before. And in education, we reflect what America is. And we have to deal with the challenges that we go home to every day. And that's really what we're talking about at this point. Everybody has a different idea about how to get there. They've I've had that for 30 years. I was reflecting on one of the issues that they'll be talking about here in the rally, which was about our new teacher evaluation system. I was taking a walk last night. Yeah, I finished walking at 1:30 this morning because things were churning in my head after a board meeting last night, so poignant to me that I couldn't turn it off. When I walked, I started to reflect, what is going on? Why are we where we're at? It's because everybody I know wants to do a right thing, a good job, to fix the stuff that needs to be fixed. And we have a tremendous debate going on, and we have ideologies that are very different. But in 30 years, I'm here to tell you something, I've lived through it, we have ideology differences in America, and that's what makes us strong, but that's also what makes us challenged. And we're right in the middle of that tsunami today. But here's what else I know. Every one of our kids, every one of them, deserves every day for us to do the best job we can, to bring the best system to them. Do you know a kid who this year graduates from Las Cruces Public Schools, enters a world where their entire future looks like this? They are likely to go into 7 career fields in their lifetime. 2 of those exist today. 3 of them are coming. They're being invented as we speak. And you know the crazy thing about it? 2 of them they will invent. So the thesis we have is, how do you prepare for that future? And that's never been the question before. Never. And that's the challenge we have. Now here's another thing that's happened. We have lost the respect and the support of some of the folks we serve. We have. Our public says we're not accountable enough. And then sometimes they're right. They say we're not transparent enough. We hide behind practices and what we're doing, and we're not complete in what we do. And sometimes they're right. And we've got to be better at that. And that's part of what this debate is and part of what this process is. Now, the political powers move back and forth through time, and we have right now before us a set of propositions that we must serve. You see, as superintendent of schools, one of the things I don't get a buy card on is not doing what is prescribed under regulation or law. I can't break the law. It's not allowed. There's something called the New Mexico Administrative Code. If I break it, I can cease to be a superintendent. So with that on one side, and the need to do what's thoughtful, right, and effective on the other, puts all of us in a bind, including me. So as I walk at night, I try to think about, how do you do that? And I know that every one of you are doing the same thing. I know that every teacher, I heard last night at the board meeting, are worried about doing the right thing. They're worried about their job. Let me tell you something about that. New Mexico Teach, the new evaluation system, is really, especially the classroom observation part, probably the best I've ever seen. That's a fact. But that's not politically expedient to some, but it's a fact from my chair. In fact, it's quite brilliant. But I hear little debate about that, by the way. I hear debate about something that we have as information for you that's about the rest of the story. So let me reflect a little bit about that. In our teacher evaluation systems, we have always looked at several factors. We measure the art and science of teaching by the teacher. That's a component of every one of the 7 sets of evaluations I've dealt with in my career. Every one of them looks at the connection and the appropriateness that the teacher develops for student learning and the outcomes that come out of that as students move through that system. And what does that teaching produce? All have measures about the learning environment. You know, when you walk in a classroom, we have expectations. I tell staff all the time, and we live this in this district, a student deserves to be in a setting where they're respected, where they feel they are better than they were from the house they left. safer, better cared for, and better provided for. That's what our system asks us to do. It is quite a challenge. And by the way, every one of those systems has measured the compliance we have with the latest rules, the latest regulations, and the latest bureaucratic requirements. Every one of them. So I don't see this a lot differently. I'm sorry. I see a lot of concern and upset over something I've seen going on through time. What we are in our education system is a resilient group, because we're a resilient society. I ask us to have that resiliency. I ask us to think about some things. Here's some things that I'm not sure we always meet the requirement of. I'm not sure we show mutual respect all the time. When you have different ideologies, what makes America great is if you believe this and try to explain it to that, and then believe that and explain it to this. In America, we don't go to fighting each other about it. We go to resolving that. You see, we're not Congress here. We have to have answers. Because we can't just turn our system off for a week or two, or 3 or 4, or a month. Because every day, guess what? Our children come to the classroom. And you know the good news? We teach them. Every day we teach them. And I'm so proud of that. I'm proud of our teachers. I am. I'm proud of our Board of Education. These are unsung heroes. Did you know something? Boards of education in New Mexico receive no compensation for what they do. They serve the hard task of making policy and supporting regulation and process and giving public insight to we who do the business for nothing. And I have some board members here today, and I want to recognize and appreciate their efforts and recognize their tireless efforts they put on every day they visit classrooms and go about their business at this dais behind me. We have a magnificent board, by the way. Did you know that? We really do. And a magnificent staff. So I'm going to ask all of us to have respect for each other. I think that's an absolute necessity. Teachers, other educators, administrators, especially frontline principals, and I see many of you in this room. This is hard business. Oh, parents, and one that I want to insist on our children. Have respect for our children. And you know, respect for children does one or more things. One of the things it does is it takes the crescendo out of their life so we can educate them and allows our adult conversations about our adult problems to be in our adult settings and not in our classrooms. And I'm going to insist on that. They deserve nothing less than that. I'm going to insist that every day as we continue through this debate and this dialogue that we carefully contemplate the other side. Because something I know about America is a place where our standards and our directions come from compromise and careful consideration. And we really do believe that you build a better mousetrap by holding hands rather than pushing back on each other. And it's time to do that. It's time to do that. We need to work together to assure that whatever system we finally put in place this time around, because there will be others, shall I live long enough and continue being gainfully employed as a superintendent, I think I might see a couple of others yet before I leave and go to the pasture. But I'm going to suggest we make it as good as we can because it does affect what we do every day. You see, we do need good teaching. We do need to have that discussion. We do need to have that adult conversation between professionals to be sure our system is responsive to our kids' needs. And I just gave you a tapestry of change about what kids are going to need. That means our system can't be and do what it's always been and done. Our system has to be malleable and change and predictive about what future needs are and prepare children for that. That's why every child has to read at their appropriate level. That is an absolute sacred must-do.